I'm going to show you just how crude and rude and disgusting this man is. No wonder Meghan Markle wants nothing to do with him these days.
Normally once you're 40 or older, never trust a fart. But you're young and you, on the M25, shut your pants via a fart. That's hilarious.
The more he spoke, the dumber he sounded. He's got to learn to shut up. He's got to learn not to spill everything. But of course, he can't control his mouth.
The laughter has stopped and the mockery has begun. After Prince Harry's Crude podcast appearance left royal fans stunned, the reaction from within the UK palace walls is reportedly brutal. Did King Charles just make the biggest mistake of his reign by inviting Harry back for a reunion? Today, we're diving into the secret messages and the public mocking that has the Duke of Sussex reeling, because what was supposed to be a fresh start may have turned into one of the most embarrassing weeks of Harry's post-royal life.
If you want to call me Ginge, you know, I got bullied a lot at school. It's called Carrot Top, wasn't I?
Not funny.
It's not funny. I'm going to need therapy after this, I think.
One more thing that's very interesting. I've been watching the comments in the comment section. They've been removing negative comments. So you'll see that there's like 4,000 or 5,000 comments and they're all positive. I put a comment on there and said, dude, we see you. We see you removing the comments. We're screenshotting these comments and then they disappear. So the people running the podcast are actually removing the negative comments about Harry.
Oh my goodness.
What happened to free speech?
It's gone.
What's going on?
Gone.
Prince Harry only had one job: walk into one of the biggest podcasts in Britain, shine a spotlight on the Invictus Games, and remind everyone why the work he does with wounded veterans still matters. It should have been one of his easiest public appearances in months. Instead, within hours, almost nobody was talking about Invictus at all.
Bully and a homophobe and all of those things that he has proclaimed he is not over the past few years is also an understatement. And honestly, no wonder Prince William wants nothing to do with his younger brother who has become a disgrace. No wonder.
The conversation quickly drifted away from service, resilience, and recovery. Instead, it became dominated by awkward jokes, crude stories, and a version of Harry that many people simply didn't expect to see. Clips spread rapidly online, not because of anything inspiring he said, but because viewers couldn't believe some of the topics he was willing to joke about during what should have been a serious promotional appearance. Then came the moment that really caught people's attention. When Harry was asked what he actually does, his answer surprised more than a few listeners.
This one. Occupation.
Full-time dad, British Army veteran, Prince of England, Duke. But for today, I don't know. What do you want, Duke?
Rather than leading with his charity work or the projects he has spent years promoting, he described himself as a full-time dad, an army veteran, and then, almost instinctively, a Prince of England. That single phrase immediately became one of the most discussed moments of the interview. For many royal watchers, it raised an uncomfortable question. Harry has spent years telling the world he wanted a life beyond the monarchy. He stepped away from royal duties, moved across the Atlantic, signed major media deals, launched businesses, written a best-selling memoir, and repeatedly spoken about building a different future. Yet, when someone simply asked what he does, the royal identity still appeared to come first.
Oh, what's your job, dude?
Doesn't have one. As
Exactly.
I said, he's unemployed.
Well, it's true.
That answer alone may not have caused lasting damage, but paired with the jokes that followed, the contrast became impossible for many people to ignore. Instead of looking like a confident man who had finally found his own path, Harry suddenly looked like someone caught between two very different worlds. One he says he left behind, and another he still hasn't fully embraced. Even people who normally defend him admitted the timing couldn't have been much worse.
This man is revolting. Can you believe that he's doing this to the British royal family?
Yes.
This wasn't an ordinary interview released during a quiet week. It arrived just as Harry was facing one of the most difficult periods he has experienced in years, making every joke, every comment, and every headline carry far more weight than they otherwise would have. But that's exactly what made the reaction inside royal circles, reportedly, so much harsher than anyone expected. The reaction inside royal circles, reportedly, wasn't driven by the jokes alone. Word is, what truly unsettled people was the timing. On their own, a few awkward comments might have been dismissed as an attempt at humor, but placed against everything else happening that week, they painted a very different picture.
He's just going to continue to make his reputation mud. He's going to look like a man-child continually and never have these images or these things that he is doing.
Harry wasn't walking into that podcast after a string of victories. He was already facing renewed scrutiny following another disappointing legal setback in Britain, and public attention was fixed on his next move. At the very same time, reports of a private reunion with King Charles were beginning to circulate, leading many to believe that the years of public conflict might finally be cooling down. For the first time in a long while, there was a chance for the conversation to shift. Instead of focusing on old arguments, people were beginning to talk about reconciliation. Instead of asking what Harry had said in the past, they were wondering what he would do next. Then, the podcast landed.
Someone who is supposed to be the son of the king should not be going on a podcast like this, is how I see it.
Almost overnight, that hopeful conversation disappeared. Wait, it gets even more complicated when you look at how Harry actually introduced himself. Headlines weren't discussing a possible family thaw or the work Harry continues to do through Invictus. They were replaying clips of crude jokes, awkward exchanges, and the now widely discussed moment when Harry introduced himself as a Prince of England.
British Army veteran, Prince of
British Army veteran.
England. Duke.
In a total of
Wait,
6 weeks, most people.
Prince of England. Prince of England, he said.
Duke.
Duke. Almost making fun of it himself.
To many observers, it looked like another missed opportunity. Just when the public seemed willing to look forward, Harry unintentionally gave everyone a reason to look back again. The spotlight returned to the same questions that have followed him for years. Has he really moved beyond royal life? Does he want privacy, or does he still depend on the royal identity? Is he trying to build a new chapter, or is he still caught between two worlds? No one outside those private conversations knows exactly what King Charles was thinking, but word is the palace had already taken one quiet step that suggested they understood just how delicate this moment really was, because one decision made before that reunion ever took place would end up speaking louder than any official statement ever could. That decision was remarkably simple. There would be no official photographs, no carefully staged family portrait, no public statement celebrating the reunion. Word is the palace wanted this meeting to remain exactly what it was supposed to be, a private moment between family members, not a public relations event. Looking back now, that choice seems far more revealing than many people realized at the time. After years of headlines, interviews, documentaries, and deeply personal accusations, trust wasn't something that could simply be switched back on. Every smile, every handshake, and every image released to the public would have been analyzed from every possible angle. A single photograph could have been interpreted as forgiveness. It could have been used as proof that old wounds had healed. Or it could have sparked another wave of speculation about Harry and Meghan's future relationship with the royal family. Instead, none of that happened. The meeting reportedly took place quietly, with almost no public fanfare. There was no attempt to convince the world that everything was suddenly fine again. If anything, the silence suggested caution. It hinted that while King Charles may have been willing to see his son, he wasn't prepared to rewrite the past or erase the years of conflict that had brought them to this point. That careful approach suddenly made much more sense once the podcast began dominating headlines. Imagine if smiling photographs had been released just days before those clips started circulating online. Instead of protecting the monarchy from fresh controversy, those images could have tied the palace directly to yet another difficult news cycle. Whether that was deliberate planning or simply good judgment, engagement, the king's decision to keep the reunion private may have prevented a bad week from becoming a disaster. But even the king couldn't control the fallout from the specific way Harry chose to introduce himself, an answer that shifted the entire conversation. That answer wasn't about the Invictus Games. It wasn't about veterans, resilience, or the causes Harry has spent years saying are closest to his heart. It was the moment he casually described himself as a Prince of England. On the surface, it may have sounded harmless. After all, Harry was born into the royal family, and royal titles have always been part of his life. But many people felt there was something much bigger hidden inside those few words. After everything that has happened over the past several years, they expected Harry to define himself by the life he chose to build, not the institution he chose to leave. That's why the reactions spread so quickly. Some people argued it was simply force of habit. Others saw it as proof that, despite years of speaking about independence, the royal connection remains at the center of Harry's public identity. It's the one thing the world immediately recognizes, and perhaps the one label that's hardest to leave behind. The irony wasn't lost on many observers. Harry has often spoken about wanting privacy and freedom from royal life, yet his biggest interviews, projects, and public appearances continue to draw attention because of the very title he has tried to distance himself from. Whether that's fair or unfair is open to debate, but it's a contradiction that people continue to notice. Meanwhile, the purpose of the interview quietly slipped into the background. Instead of discussing the athletes, the upcoming games, or the lives changed through Invictus, the public conversation circled back to Harry once again. The cause that should have been leading the headlines was suddenly competing with another debate about the Duke of Sussex. But while everyone argued over Harry's title, something even more important had already disappeared from the conversation, and that may have been the greatest cost of all. That missing piece was the very reason Harry was sitting in that studio in the first place. The interview was supposed to shine a light on the Invictus Games, the wounded veterans who inspire millions through their resilience, and the life-changing work the organization continues to do. Instead, much of that message was swallowed by a completely different conversation. They were replaying awkward clips, debating Harry's comments, and picking apart moments that had little to do with the event he was there to promote. Once again, the spotlight shifted away from the mission and landed squarely on the messenger. That's what many observers found most disappointing. No one doubts that Harry played a major role in creating Invictus, or that many veterans genuinely respect what the games have achieved. Over the years, it has become one of the strongest parts of his public legacy. But every time another personal controversy dominates the headlines, the work itself risks being pushed further into the background. Some people even began asking an uncomfortable question. Has it reached the point where every public appearance involving Harry inevitably becomes a story about Harry? Whether the event is a charity fundraiser, a speech, or an interview, the conversation often seems to drift back toward royal drama instead of the cause he intended to highlight. That creates a difficult challenge. A charity should be remembered for the people it serves, not for the headlines surrounding its founder. When the public spends days discussing podcast clips instead of the athletes themselves, it's fair to wonder who ultimately pays the price. No one can know whether Harry intended any of this. By all accounts, he remains deeply committed to Invictus, but intentions and outcomes aren't always the same. In the world of public opinion, perception moves faster than explanation. But while Invictus quietly faded from the headlines, another conversation was reportedly unfolding behind palace walls, and this time it wasn't about charity. It was about trust. That conversation was reportedly centered on one question above all else: could Harry be trusted again? Word is, that wasn't simply about family feelings. It was about everything that had happened over the past several years. Private conversations had become public interviews. Family disagreements had become documentaries. Personal memories had become best-selling books. Each new project made rebuilding confidence that much harder. That's why many people believe the recent reunion was handled so carefully. It wasn't presented as a grand reconciliation. It wasn't celebrated as a fresh beginning. Instead, every detail suggested caution. The palace appeared determined to keep expectations low and emotions under control. For King Charles, the situation was never going to be simple. On one hand, he is a father who reportedly wanted to see his son after years years of painful public conflict. On the other, he is also the monarch. Every private decision carries public consequences, especially when it involves someone who has repeatedly shared deeply personal family matters with the world. That balancing act may explain why the meeting remained so tightly managed. There were no official celebrations, no public declarations that everything had been forgiven, just a quiet visit that reportedly took place on the king's terms. Even then, many royal watchers wondered whether reopening the door carried risks of its own. Trust, once broken, rarely returns overnight. It has to be rebuilt one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, and perhaps most importantly, one promise at a time. Whether Harry intends to keep future family conversations private remains something only time can answer. But word is, many people inside royal circles are no longer listening to promises alone. They're watching what happens next. Because while King Charles may have been willing to give Harry another private moment, there was one member of the royal family who saw the entire situation very differently. That person was reportedly Prince William. While King Charles is often seen as a father trying to preserve some connection with his youngest son, word is that William's perspective is very different. For him, this isn't simply about repairing a family relationship. It's about protecting the future of the monarchy he will one day inherit. Many royal watchers believe the two men are looking at the same situation through completely different lenses. Charles has spent his life balancing the duties of a monarch with the emotions of a parent. It's understandable that he would want to see his son, regardless of everything that has happened between them. Family bonds are rarely simple, especially when they're tested in front of the entire world. William, however, reportedly sees something else. Every interview, every documentary, every public accusation, and every deeply personal revelation has left its mark. From his point of view, rebuilding trust isn't just about sharing another private meeting. It's about whether actions finally begin matching words. That's why the timing of the reunion raised so many questions. To some observers, opening the palace doors so soon after another difficult week risked sending the wrong message. It created the impression, fair or not, that years of public criticism could eventually be followed by another chance, without any clear sign that the underlying problems had changed. Whether that interpretation is accurate is something only those closest to the family truly know. But the contrast between the king's compassion and William's reported caution has become one of the most talked about parts of this entire story. Perhaps that's the greatest challenge facing the royal family today. It's no longer just about healing old wounds. It's about deciding how forgiveness and accountability can exist side by side without weakening either one. But while attention remained fixed on the growing divide inside the royal family, one contradiction in Harry's own story quietly became impossible for many people to ignore. Harry has spent years saying he wanted to move beyond royal life, yet his biggest headlines still seem to revolve around the very institution he left. Whether it was the podcast, the reunion, or the debate that followed, the royal family once again became the center of the story. And that brings us right back to where we began. Did King Charles make the biggest mistake of his reign by opening the door to Harry again, or was he simply acting as a father before a king? Now, I want to hear your opinion. Does the king's silence mean he's protecting Harry, or is he finally done? Let's settle this in the comments. I'm reading every single one. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over. I'm Jane Expose, and I'll be here bringing you every twist, every headline, and every royal bombshell as soon as it breaks. I'll see you in the next one.